Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Welcome, Jeannette Linfoot, to the Focus on Why podcast.
Thank you, Amy.
It's lovely to have you here on this bright, sunny morning.
Indeed, isn't it glorious?
So, multiple business owner, and tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I haven't always been in this place. So at the moment, I have 3 businesses in my portfolio, which is really exciting because great variety and I love the entrepreneurial aspect of that. So one of the businesses I have is my board advisory business, where I work with corporate clients, private equity clients, mainly on mergers and acquisitions, but also strategy, business development, and then very often I will take an ongoing role with those businesses post-acquisition. So that's one of my businesses. The second business I have is my property investment business, which is with my lovely partner, Chris. Where we invest primarily in Manchester. We have properties in the south as well, but mainly Manchester is our focus area for sort of ongoing growth. And then the third business I have is my mentoring business, which I absolutely love. So I work with, a whole range of different people, really. And that's all about unlocking their potential and supporting them through their journey. And just really being able to be there as a compassionate friend, but at the same time to give structure and encouragement and motivation and sometimes to kick up the bum that we all need from someone that's not so emotionally close to us. So I really love the business mentoring side of things. So that's kind of where I am now. But previous to that, I spent most of my career in the corporate world. So I've made that jump out of corporate into entrepreneurial. So I had 25 years in the travel industry. The last role I was doing was as the CEO of the travel division for Saga. So I ran 4 businesses within that. And then prior to that, I was managing director of the emerging markets for TUI, where I bought, ran, sold businesses in crazy parts of the world, Russia, India, China, Brazil, you name it. So a very international role. And so that's kind of been a very snapshot summary of my professional career, if you like. But as you can tell, I'm a northerner, I'm a Mancunian, so come from a very good, solid working class family. And so here I am today.
And how did you find yourself in the travel industry?
Well, it was interesting, actually, because I did an economics degree way back when. My God, it's so long ago now. It feels like another lifetime. But I did an economics degree, which was great because that's sort of, quite a broad area which you can apply in multiple fields. So my first proper job actually was as a government economist in Whitehall. And I did the classic northerner where I said, I'll go down south for 2 years, 3 years max. And then 25 years later, I'm still here. So I did that for a couple of years and it was a great start to sort of professional career. But I just knew it wasn't, the grey suits of the civil service weren't really for me. And that was the point really that I then jumped into the travel industry as a graduate, actually, on a graduate training scheme at Thomson way back when. So this would be about 95, 96. So that was cool. And then from there, I just got a real passion for the travel industry and for seeing the world and the different cultures and just the joy it brings to people, really, holidays and what that means to people. So yeah, absolutely loved it from there, really, and then stuck in that space for quite some time, as you can tell.
So you enjoy travel. What do you love about travel?
For me, it's around learning, exploration, different cultures. I'm just fascinated by the world, really, in general, and just how that can inspire you to think differently, to broaden your perspective. I think to be in awe of something when you're traveling is just the most magical thing you can feel, really. And so to have had the opportunity to sort of, have my career in that space, as well as traveling from a personal perspective, it's just a real passion. And, I think that variety that it gives you and the different perspectives is fascinating.
And did you have the opportunity to sort of immerse yourself in the culture when you were traveling with work? Because quite a lot of people who do travel with work literally go from sort of airplane to hotel to the office that are in that particular location, back to the hotel, back to the airport.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's never as glamorous in reality as it sounds, And I think sometimes when I would be away on business, everyone would think I'm just on holiday, right? And that was most definitely not the case. And in particular, when I was heading up the emerging markets for two, my weekly commute would be to Beijing or to Delhi, Monday to Friday, and it's exhausting. 12-hour flights, 8-hour time differences, all of that stuff. So you're right. It's not always the most glamorous, and sometimes you can feel like you literally do see the airport, the hotel, the office, and then back again. But nonetheless, what was always really important to me doing business in those parts of the world is to really understand the culture that you're working in, and to be respectful for that. Because what you often can find is that where sometimes businesses, maybe from the European perspective, they'll go into a market like Russia or India and think they can just apply the same approach. And the business environment is totally different. The customers, most importantly, are really different. And you need to understand the cultural background to allow you to have an affinity to your teams and the customer as well. So I always tried very hard to spend time as well, and listen a lot. I would always do cultural training for my teams, for example, if we were going into a new area. So just to really equip people, and respect, in particular Asia, it tends to be quite more of a hierarchical approach. So loss of face is a really big thing, which actually isn't really something that we think about from a European perspective. So yeah, I was always fascinated about that, and to really be respectful for the local environment.
And what kept you engaged for 25 years?
Well, I was lucky, really, Amy, because during that time, I wasn't in just one organisation. I've worked for some of the best travel brands that you'll be aware of. Thomson, First Choice, Thomas Cook, TUI, Saga. So I've had a lot of variety in my roles, and I guess I started off with the variety of being on a graduate scheme, which kind of gets you a flavour of business overall because you move around. And then I progressed very much on the commercial side of running a travel business, which is, obviously high pressure because you're trading, you're focused on the customer as well. But then my career evolved, and I then, when I went into the emerging markets, it was much more around mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, corporate finance, in a different environment. So I've just had a lot of variety. And as a sector, you're prone to so many different influences. No year is ever the same. No country that you're sending, customers on holiday to is the same. So there's so many different dimensions that it just always, kind of kept my interest for that time. So I always really loved my time in travel.
And did you use your economics much?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just business, So in particular, I think as I progressed through my career to the point of having full P&L accountability, and obviously that then really comes into its own. And I think from any business, whether you're a small business or a larger business, you're always kind of conscious of the macroeconomic environment you're operating in, and the outside influences, as well as running the business on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you can get growth coming through, that you've got a very solid cash flow balance sheet. So all of those, I guess, early learnings from my academic career, yes, they came in. I wouldn't say I sat there and felt like I was, applying an economics textbook, because life and business isn't like that, is it? But it was just kind of inherent, really. So, yeah, it was useful. Yeah, always useful.
And what has made you, or why have you now become more of an entrepreneur?
Well, you know what? I think I got to a stage where I'd really loved my career, And I'd always enjoyed the roles I've done. You will hear people a lot say, oh, I hate the corporate world, or I wanted to leave my job. That was never the case for me. I was always very, very lucky and felt very fortunate. But I also reached a point in my mid-40s where I thought, I really wanted to take a different path, not to move away exactly from everything I'd done, but to just broaden my perspective. And for me, at that point, and it's very topical that the purpose of this podcast is focus on your why. I definitely took some time at that stage to really think about what's important to me in life and what do I want the next phase to be. And I've always enjoyed the entrepreneurial aspects, even in the corporate. People think corporates aren't entrepreneurial. They are actually very entrepreneurial. You have to be to survive in business. But I really like the idea of having a portfolio of businesses that gave me more flexibility, more choice. I wanted to be my own boss. I also wanted to be able to leave a lasting impact in this world. So just really taking that time to think about what was important to me then sort of guided me, if you like, Amy. But it wasn't a lightning bolt thing, with an absolute direct path. I'm going to have 3 businesses and these are what they're going to be. It sort of emerged and evolved over time and grew organically, really. But those were the main things, just wanting to be, one, live the best life I can, be the best version of myself I can. And I knew there was more that I could achieve and had the potential for, leave a lasting impact on this world. And also, to be able to give back. And it's interesting because I think when you do take that time for yourself, we don't often stop and just think. So often we're so busy with our lives and our businesses that we don't take stock. But having the luxury of the time and the space to do that has definitely helped me in terms of the next phase, really. So it's fantastic. I feel really satisfied and happy with where I am in life.
And when you talk about a lasting impact, firstly, who's that for and why is it important for you to do that?
Well, there's 2 things really within that, Amy. I think there's one around family and legacy from a sort of a personal perspective. I've got 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest of 3, and so my sisters have been fantastic. And I've got 5 nephews, 2 nieces, 2 great nephews, and a great niece. So our family is expanding, and I'm very incredibly close to my family. So for me, I really want to leave a lasting legacy for my nieces and nephews. I like the idea of my impact continuing for generations to come. So that's sort of more of a personal impact, if you like, in terms of our family. In terms of the wider impact, I am sort of fascinated really about the potential that people have within them, and to be able to support people, as many people as possible, to fulfill their potential. And in particular, I work with men and women, and this is where the mentoring really kicks in. But if I can help even one person fulfill their dreams, live their dreams, and be the best version of themselves, for me, that is so rewarding. And in particular, from a sort of female perspective, I've always been the only woman in the boardroom, for example. And I just think that there's so much untapped talent in this world that to be able to unlock that and help people live their best versions of their lives, for me, is massively inspiring, really. So that's around the broader legacy, if you like, which is not related directly to my own family. I genuinely care. And if I can help other people because I've been down a certain journey myself, then that's fantastic.
And how are you going about bringing sort of more women to the boardroom or more people to reach their potential? What is it you're doing?
So through the mentoring, I mean, there's a whole host of stuff really, Amy, but at the moment I'm focusing primarily on the mentoring side of things. And it's interesting because, there are 7 billion people on this planet. Well, it's probably more now, actually. And, by default, half of them are women. But what you tend to find is that for a whole variety of reasons, women don't necessarily reach the higher levels of organizations. And when, coming out of university, it's pretty 50-50 between men and women. So why is it then that, if you look at, say, large listed companies, FTSE 100 companies, only less than 30% of board directors are women? And that just feels inherently wrong to me. And certainly in my industry, when you actually look at that, that's 6%. It's a shocking statistic. So I guess I've got a lot of direct experience myself, which means, I know exactly what it's like to tread that path. So through the mentoring, very often it's around applying some of the tools and tricks that I've kind of put into place my own career progression to help those particular women fulfill and progress in their careers or their businesses. There's a whole piece around mindset as well. Self-belief is, and this is the same for men or women, actually. It's pretty much a common theme that I see with the people that I work with. But very often we put blockers in our own minds, and men and women are different. They're not better or worse, they're just different. But as women, very often we will restrict ourselves for the whole variety of reasons. So a woman would look at a job description, for example, and there might be 30% of the requirements that she's not had direct experience of, and she'll hone in on them. Whereas when a guy looks at the same, say, job specification, he won't even worry about the 30% he hasn't done. He'll say, I can do 70%. I'm just going to go for it. So there's a whole piece around self-belief and mindset, and encouraging women to really realize that they can be just as good as a man, and really unlock that potential. So there's lots of techniques that I will use and put in play, but it's always a very individualized approach, because we all have different backgrounds. A lot of us suffer from the old imposter syndrome can kick in. That's quite a common thing. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I belong. So it's a combination, really, Amy, of sort of my own direct experience and applying that in a relevant way to that individual, but also helping them see their true potential in themselves and really giving the encouragement and support on the mindset side of things.
So have you always been this self-aware and known your own potential, or have people helped you on the way?
Oh, God, no. I mean, it's come over years, isn't it? And that's the thing. I think when you get to a certain point in your life, you generally feel a lot more comfortable in your own shoes. And, for me, sort of being mid-40s, I think this is a brilliant age, because you've got the experience behind you. You are more self-aware. But, God, no, it wasn't always like that at all. I've been very fortunate that I've had some amazing people to support and help me along the way, whether it's coaches, mentors, compassionate friends. I think the people that you spend time with can really make a massive difference to how you develop as an individual. I mean, I'm really lucky because I've got the most amazing supportive partner in Chris. He's my number one fan. He's also, he can be, my number one critic as well. So we have very honest conversations, and I think you need that in your life. And I've had lots of people through my journey that have really either supported, inspired, and just helped me hold a mirror up sometimes. I think that's what those kind of relationships can do, just so that you do understand yourself more as you mature. So, but it comes with time, doesn't it, and experience.
So what do you spend most of your time doing right now?
So a mixture, really. I tend to try and focus on 5 key areas, if you like, in my normal everyday life, living, whatever you want to say. Obviously, there's business. That's one thing, and that clearly splits into the 3 areas that I spoke about before. The second one is self-development. I'm a voracious reader. I love a good book, whether it's a business book or an autobiography or, fiction for a bit of escapism. So I'm a voracious reader. I love the whole developing my own mind, really, and just sort of the exploration of that. So self-development is the second one. The third one, fitness and sort of health and well-being is really important to me. I'm a big believer in exercise. I probably train most days. that's obviously got a physical benefit, but it's also for the mind as well. I find I get my best ideas when I'm running, or whatever. So for me, that's a core part of my everyday living. Then there's family, of course, family and friends, and making sure that you're enjoying the time of those that you love the most, and kind of giving back. Even if that's just something as simple as, I don't know, maybe you've got an elderly relative that lives on their own, just picking up the phone and saying, hi, just checking in, or it could be something bigger than that, more philanthropic from a charity point of view, or, so I think to give back is kind of nice. So I tend to split my time, in those 5 areas, not always equally split. Sometimes business is all about business, and sometimes, the other things aren't exactly in equilibrium and balance. But I think those are my focus areas, if you like, Amy.
And what brings you the most joy?
Oh gosh, I think it's progress, or feeling like you're making an impact. I've got this big thing around, I want to make sure I don't waste my time on this earth. We only have one life, and I really feel passionately about progress and helping people and really enjoying the moment. So it's not just one thing. I'm not just sort of the person that's just a steady Eddie. I like change, growth. So when I'm at my happiest, there's nothing nicer than when you've worked with someone. Let's take the mentoring side of things, where someone who has maybe started out with quite, lacking self-belief, confidence, and then you work with them and you can just see them blossom and shine. I absolutely love that, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. But equally, if you have a particularly challenging business initiative or something to get off the ground, that's great, isn't it? It's such a, if you have a big task, I really get a lot of joy when you kind of crack it and you go, yes, I've learned something and I've really pushed myself out of my comfort zone.
And how do you manage to combine the progress, the desire for progress, but also manage to live in the moment? Because I find that hard.
Yeah, it can be hard, can't it? And I think that's the thing. I mean, if you're a driven person, like I think you and I both are very driven around wanting to improve and grow, sometimes the danger of that is that you're so focused on what's next that you don't stop and celebrate the small wins. So I'd say it's something that I definitely have to work at every day. And it helps actually if you've got a partner like Chris is brilliant at being able to say to me, slow down, just enjoy the moment. So I think if you've got, if we're all the same, it'd probably be quite dangerous. But if you've got a nice combination of a relationship, that's helpful. And I think it's also just at this moment in time as well, it's just slowing down and blocking a bit of time for yourself. So that could be going for a walk and just turning the phone off, just being with nature. But it's something I always have to work on, Amy, as well. And sometimes it's not always the big wins. Sometimes we can be focused on the big achievements, and yes, you might crack the champagne open, and that's wonderful. But every day there's little wins, aren't there, all along the way? And I think if you want to keep your energy levels high and motivated, it's really great if you can just pause for breath and go, yeah, did all right there, or, oh, that was a good call. I'll celebrate with, a cup of tea and a slice of cake or whatever, So, yeah, it's always a challenge for me, because I'm always wanting to do more and be better and improve. And you can miss the journey if you're not careful.
So with the transition of moving out of corporate, albeit that you're still involved in sort of corporate world anyway, did you find that hard to sort of set up your own businesses?
It's definitely a set of different challenges, and I think what people, when you're in a corporate or in a job, you're so used to the structure around that you have the resources, you might have a brilliant PA, you've got an IT department, everything works wonderfully, all of that stuff. And if you've been in that world for a long time, the danger is you take that for granted. And it's not until you come out of that world that all of a sudden you go, oh, right, okay, it really is me and my laptop. So he's definitely quite a big shift. And I don't think people talk about that enough, actually. Because a lot of that, what I'll call grunt work, actually, and just getting stuff set up, the foundations, it takes time and effort. And I think sometimes, in particular in the world of property, everyone's obsessed about how many properties have you got and what's the gross development value and what refurbishments have you done. Whereas actually, even just basic things like getting a new email address, setting up, getting your business card, setting up your limited company, all this stuff, it takes time and effort. So I think for me, it was trying to give myself credit for a lot of that foundational stuff in the early days, rather than thinking, oh gosh, I haven't done enough and I haven't got the big shiny, obvious KPIs and things to shout about yet. But it definitely involved a bit of a mindset shift. But I think also sometimes when the converse of that is when you're in a role for quite a long time, or in an industry for a long time, sometimes you don't realize how good you are either, because that's what you do. And then when you come out of that into a new world, you go, oh gosh, I can apply all of this, but in maybe a much more creative way. So I think there's two sides to it. So for me, yeah, it was quite difficult at first, but you just have to break it down, I think, into manageable pieces. What's that phrase? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And if you're trying to climb the mountain, you're focused on the top, that can seem quite daunting. So for me, it was all around. I'm a very practical person. I like a plan and I like to be able to feel I'm making progress against that. So it was really trying to break it down into those smaller things. And then once you've got that all in place, it's done, isn't it? You can forget about that and focus on the more exciting, interesting stuff. So yeah, it is a transition. It is a transition.
And you mentioned that you're a voracious reader. Which particular books have had a big impact on your life?
Oh gosh, there's loads really. I mean, in terms of early reading about mindset, books like The Secret. I love that. Law of Attraction, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that's a good one actually, because it does tell you about you live it, enjoy the here and now. Don't always be so busy to rush on to the next thing. So those kind of books I've really, really loved. I like autobiographies as well. I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, Total Recall. I don't know if you've read that.
I've loved that. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and I found that amazing. And, again, you kind of, at first, you might think, God, why would you be inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger? But I absolutely was. So those kind of books I really enjoy. In terms of a fiction, well, kind of semi-fiction book, there's a great book called Shantaram.
Oh, I love that book.
By Gregory David Roberts.
Yeah.
And because I spent a lot of time in India and I understand the culture, that really kind of struck home with me. But I just love a good book. So a variety of stuff, really. Business books, Good to Great, Jim Collins, that's a fantastic book.
It's on my desk right in front of me now.
Oh, there you are then. Yeah, that's great. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everyone quotes that. I've just read What It Takes by Stephen Schwarzman recently. He's the CEO and founder of Blackstone, which is the largest private equity fund in the world. But he started off very humble beginnings, which really was inspiring from a very business perspective. So there's never one. I mean, I've got a whole big list, really, to be honest, Amy. But you always take something away, even if you read something and you think, oh no, I'm not quite sure that's me. There's always something in there that you think, oh yeah, okay, I can apply that, or that makes sense, and that's what I love.
I find the same with podcasts. Don't dismiss them just because you don't know the person that, who's in that podcast as a guest, because actually they can often be the ones that most surprise you. So I guess that the old adage of don't judge a book by its cover can be very true.
Absolutely, 100%. And this, your Focus on Why podcast is brilliant, because you're actually giving people a voice and a forum, if you like. And there'll be lots of people that will resonate with different guests that you've had on for different reasons, and they would never have even probably been aware of them. So I think it's wonderful. And podcasts are great, aren't they? Because you can really leverage your time as well. You can listen to them while you're running or whatever. You can be quite efficient. I like the efficiency things.
I think it's something that I've had a lot of feedback from people saying that they were really surprised listening to the different types of podcasts, different episodes, because they didn't realize that somebody would have an impact on them, and they have, and been sort of reduced to tears in good ways. But there's been a lot of different responses.
Yeah, I can imagine. And as you say, we're all unique. I think that's the thing. Sometimes we're so busy comparing ourselves to other people that we forget that we are all in ourselves the best person at being ourselves. And we all have, a unique, there's no one like us, no one like me, there's no one like you. We are unique, and we bring a different set of experiences and knowledge and perspectives. And I think that's great. It's inspiring.
So what's next on the horizon for you, Jeanette?
Well, gosh, I love the businesses I've got. So it's all around scaling up now. I think in particular our property business, because we've spent a good proportion of time getting that in great shape. So it's around how do we now really achieve the big goals that we've set ourselves with that business. The advisory work and the work which I do, I'm likely to take a couple of non-exec director positions or chairs over the next couple of years, I would anticipate. The mentoring side is around doing more, but how do I have a broader reach and impact there? So, you're inspiring me with this whole podcast scenario, Amy, so that might be something that I would embrace, because I've got quite a broad network globally of interesting people, not just in the travel space, but, on a different perspective. So, that's something, if I can have a broader reach to make a bigger impact to help people fulfill their potential, then that's sort of a big goal of mine. I have a sort of a longer term vision, if you like, Amy, around connecting brilliant female business owners in the Western world with female entrepreneurs in developing countries. So, how great would it be? Some of the work I've done in the past pro bono is working with entrepreneurs in Thailand and in India, where there's a local community business, and really that business is there to provide fresh water, well-being, health for the children in the village. And yet, how fulfilling would it be for someone who's a strong businesswoman in, say, the UK to buddy up with that, female entrepreneur to really make an impact on the ground. So I've got a bigger vision around how to unlock that potential.
Yeah, I was going to say that I can see that working both ways, that both parties would learn from each other, and things that we take for granted in the Western world actually would be, great to adopt sort of fresh eyes again of how to approach business from emerging markets.
Absolutely. And also, I think, when you come down to the time I spent in India, there's a third of the population in India live on less than $1 a day. And sometimes I think we take so much for granted. We're so lucky in the Western world, in the developed world, that it can make us a bit arrogant and actually lose touch with some of the really basic joyful things that are there in life. So I agree. I think having the opportunity to spend time and to really make a very real impact when it comes to things like that is amazing.
Well, I look forward to watching that space and seeing that happen. That sounds incredible. And how will people get in touch with you, Jeanette? What's the best way of reaching out to you?
Oh, so I'm Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel, Jeannette Linfoot, so quite easy to find me. 2 N's in Jeanette. Everyone spells my name wrong, so that's a common problem. But yeah, those are the main ways to reach out to me. I've also got a website, which is JeannetteLinfootAssociates.com, so you can check out all of the various things that I do there as well.
Fantastic. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your why with the audience. And would you be able to leave the audience with one final message, please?
I absolutely would. And my message is, be brave, be bold, be brilliant. You only have one life, and every single person has greatness within them. So, no regrets, go all out and really push yourself beyond what you think you're capable of, because that's where the magic happens.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook and become a member of the inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.